So the recording warning, I guess it's time to get going, huh? All right. Well, I guess everyone, thanks for joining the Emory Over 40 webinar today. I'm Michael. I have the privilege of leading this merry band we call Emory Over 40. It could be over 40 years, it could be over 40 pounds, 40 IQ points. Most of us are over 40 years of age, though, so everyone's certainly welcome here. If you haven't heard of us before, we have an event about every other month or so, give or take. In the past, we've had events on blockchain or cryptocurrencies, cybersecurity, mentoring, leadership, and other things. So this kind of stuff looks interesting to you. You're in the right place. We mainly focus on professional development, community service, and social networking, I guess fellowship, we'd say. Our next event is probably going to be in July. We're looking at what that's going to be, so we're certainly open to some ideas and what that might be from you guys. Normally, I guess in the pre-pandemic time, we do these things live. And we certainly miss being live. We miss being together. You guys probably have Zoom fatigue just like I do. But as we look forward to getting back into live events soon, we'd love your ideas on how and where we should do this and what they should look like and what we should be doing. So to that end, there's a link on Emory's Over 40 Facebook page that I've posted in the chat. If you don't have the page, you're gonna have access. If you're a member of the page, you can check it out in the chat window and request access. But inside there's a kind of a quick poll that I posted just earlier today, asking for ideas and comments. If you guys have a favorite venue, favorite park, a favorite restaurant, whatever it is, let me know. Emory's currently shaping up their live gathering protocols and what they'll allow, but certainly we'll find out what that is, make sure we're doing something aligned with that. But I would love your feedback on what we're gonna do. One other thing to look at on the Emory Over 40 page, just while I'm thinking about it, the new president, Gregory Fenves, has a session for Atlanta specifically, just for us, coming up on Monday. It's Monday from 7 to 8 p.m. If you click on the link in the Emory Over 40 page, you can see that, or you can go to engage.emory.edu and go to the calendar up the top there, and there's all kinds of events, and you'll see it there. But it's kind of a cool session. I'm going to be talking to just Atlanta, just us, kind of get to know us a little bit. The description says that he's hitting the road to meet us in our regional community, although it's a digital event, so don't be fooled like I was. I was confused by that. But anyway, there'd be a good opportunity to kind of get to know him and ask questions and just kind of see what he's about and kind of get to know him a little bit. So that being said, I guess we'll kind of turn this over to Kevin Kell. Kevin is the Emory alumni regional ambassador for us. He kind of helps us out with Emory, helps us with resources, helps us understand what's going on in school, and help us make great events like today. So Kevin's a fantastic asset for us. He's also an Emory alum, and I'll turn it over to him to introduce our presenter today.
Well, great. Thanks, Michael. Delighted to be here today. On behalf of the board of directors, I welcome you to the intersection of climate change, equity, and health, presented by Emory's own Keenan Howitt. I hope you had an hour to read Keenan's bio on the registration page. If I were to mention just the highlights, this presentation wouldn't start until the cocktail hour. She's truly a superstar at Emory. Keenan's name is synonymous with environmental responsibility, and what she's accomplished at Emory is just phenomenal. If you haven't heard of the Emory Water Hub, I urge you to run, not walk, to Google it and prepare to be amazed. I've had the honor of knowing Keenan for a number of years, and I've had the pleasure of hearing her speak on numerous occasions at other Emory events. We're in for a real treat today, and I hope you'll join me in welcoming her. Keenan?
Thank you so much, Kevin, for that really kind introduction. I'm going to share my screen and we can get going. So I, as Kevin said, have been at Emory now for 15 years. I'm Associate Vice President for Resilience, Sustainability, and Economic Inclusion for Emory and Emory Healthcare. And can someone give me a thumbs up if you're seeing my screen? Great, thank you. So Emory's vision around sustainability is a healthy planet, healthy communities, and healthy Emory. And we really frame our activities around universal goals. Before we get started, I want to just take a moment to ground us in where we are when we talk about Emory. Emory and Emory Healthcare are located on land that was the ancestral home of the Muskogee Creek Nation. The Creek people were forcibly removed from this land during the Trail of Tears relocation in the 1800s. I acknowledge and honor the land and people of the Muskogee Creek Nation, and honor and acknowledge those enslaved people who were forcibly brought to these lands. So as we think about our sustainability goals at Emory, as I mentioned, we really frame them around what the United Nations has developed as broad global goals. And when you look at these, you'll be struck by a couple of things, I think. First of all, that they are extremely ambitious: no poverty, zero hunger, but also that they really marry those social justice ambitions with traditional environmental protection goals like clean water, clean air, and climate action. And it's this intersection where we are seeking to work at Emory. So we have framed our vision, our 2025 sustainability vision, and all its many component parts in keeping with the United Nations goals. And what I often say is there's no silver bullet for sustainability. It's really necessary to work across all these areas to have a truly comprehensive approach that's effective. So I want to start, though, of course, with the climate action piece, because that is our existential threat. That's a picture of my little boy on Jekyll Island. And so you can imagine I have a lot of personal interest in ensuring that we have a healthy planet for our future. And our goals at Emory are in line with the United Nations goals, pardon me, which are 45% reduction of greenhouse gases by 2030 and net zero by 2050. Right now, I'm happy to report our reduction is 31% from that 2010 baseline. And that was for our 2020 greenhouse gas reporting. So we are well on our way. We think we're really going to hit that 45% reduction target without too much trouble. Our challenge will be that we anticipate the United Nations is going to, they will, we're almost certain, make these goals more stringent so that it's possible we'll really have to strive for net zero by 2030 or so. So Emory follows the science. If those changes happen, we'll change our goals. But right now, that's what we're aiming towards. One of the things that the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change made clear was that it's not enough just to reduce emissions. We also have to actively sequester carbon dioxide, and we really need new technologies to do that. And Emory's really doing a fantastic job, both in its research with faculty to find some of those new innovations, but also operationally. So for example, some of you may know that we are constructing a new health sciences research building on Haygood Road. What you might not realize is the concrete used is something called Carbon Cure, Thomas's concrete, made right here in Georgia, which takes carbon dioxide byproduct of manufacturing and sequesters it in the concrete, so that for the life of that building, that carbon dioxide is sequestered. This is a great example of the important role that Emory can play, because we have the nimbleness to do this. We have the faculty to research how it goes. And so we're really at the cutting edge of beta testing these new types of technologies on our own campus. And that's why frequently you'll hear our campus referred to because we really see energy by 2035. And that is a goal from the city of Atlanta, and we are helping to support their goal.
A quick heads up, you were dropping out just for a moment there. So if there's I'm sure you said something really good about it 30 seconds ago. Would it be worth summarizing that real quick for us?
Sure. I was just saying that the 100% renewable energy by 2035 goal is from the city of Atlanta's goal. We're just marrying that and helping support that.
Okay, cool. Thanks. There was one question in the chat, just real quick there. Somebody's asking if Emory's goals overlap with Drawdown Georgia goals. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with that organization or not, or have any comment on that.
Yeah, sure. So we work a lot with Drawdown Georgia, and Drawdown has specific climate solutions, 7 different buckets of climate solutions that we have contributed our projects to. So they're really the aggregator of a lot of what's going on in Georgia right now. They don't actually implement, at least they haven't so far. We would love it if, over time they start to fund implementation. But right now we are contributing to that aggregation of information. It's research information, and it's also operational information. So yeah, very engaged with them, and think they are a terrific addition to what's happening in Georgia. And I should add that the National Drawdown Project is something also that, again, ensuring that Emory's work is touching all of the areas that Drawdown believes will help us maintain 1.5 degrees C increase and no more than that. And so as I work through this, you'll see some of those solutions reflected in my slides. So the next area where we're doing work, as I mentioned, is affordable and clean energy, pursuing that sustainable development goal. And if you our campus recently, you're in for a treat, because when you come, you'll see that we now have solar canopies on our parking decks, and you may not be able to see them, but know that we also have solar on the flat roofs of many of our buildings on campus. Actually maxed out the allowable amount that Georgia Power will let us have of solar on our campus, 5.5 megawatts, which represents 10% of our peak energy demand. We also have put in geothermal for our LEED Platinum Student Center. We have combined heat and power, also called cogeneration, where we capture the waste heat at our steam plant. There's 1 megawatt of renewable power through that. And then we have new microgrid going in with this health sciences research building that I mentioned. And what's great about that is the solar on that building will be able to continue to operate the research building even if the grid goes down. And one of the things we're finding is with climate change, our grid is going down more frequently because of heavy storms. Hurricanes on the coast end up causing heavy storms and rains in Atlanta. That impacts our grid, the power lines and everything around Emory's campus, and all these big trees that we have. We are finding that we are having an increasing number of power outages, and we don't want any of that important health sciences research to be at risk. So the microgrid ensures the continuation of operations moving forward. So that's a key component of our resilience planning. And one of the questions I get asked often is, with the pandemic and the financial crisis, how is it that you're continuing to put on solar panels and are continuing to put a microgrid on this building? And the answer is that we've come up with some innovative financing solutions where Emory is partnering with private investors who pay all upfront capital costs, and we just pay, just like we would a utility bill, over time, a fixed amount over a, say, 20-year contract. And that's ended up enabling us to move quickly despite other constraints. So when we do our greenhouse gas emissions inventory, our biggest component is electricity. So that's why I always mention that first. But a growing area is our commuting and especially our air travel. In fact, the single biggest contributor in terms of percentage increase over time has been air travel, which makes sense because we are a global university. We don't want to stop being a global university, but that just means we have to really ratchet down in other areas more tightly. And so we are doing a whole lot to reduce our single-use our single occupancy vehicles. And I'm happy to say when I started at Emory, I think we were around 22% of our campus not taking single occupancy vehicles. Now we're well over 50% don't. And a lot of that is because we have a fantastic Cliff shuttle system, which if you haven't ridden it, it's free, it's open to the public. It's a great way to get to campus and around campus. We go to Grady, Midtown, all over Atlanta. We're the largest private shuttle system operating in Metro Atlanta. And it runs on the used cooking oil from our hospital and campus cafeterias. So I always say, eat your French fries guilt-free when you're at Emory because it runs our shuttle. And it is a wonderful example of taking something that used to be handled as a waste and now using it as a source of power for our shuttle fleet. And that fleet takes about 3 million car trips every year off our campus and out of busy Atlanta traffic. So you can read here on the slide that we have other incentives for biking and carpooling. And one of the most exciting things that you'll see next time you're on campus are additional bike paths, multi-use bike paths that we have partnered with the Path Foundation, a local nonprofit, to put in what we think of as our mini beltline around Emory. And we're hoping to grow that over time. The other interesting piece is that we set a goal to have our employees able to telework at least one day a week, which I am sure makes you laugh because now with the pandemic, we're teleworking every day of the week. So that definitely will help with our greenhouse gas emissions reductions. And we've now seen that having everyone telework is absolutely viable at least one day a week for most jobs. The other important area where we're doing a lot is in buildings. So building, the operation, the maintenance, and the construction of buildings are one of the largest sectors in terms of greenhouse gas contributions. And Emory was very early out of the gate in building sustainably. In fact, we built the first LEED certified building in the Southeast and the first LEED Gold for existing buildings in the country. And we have one of the largest portfolios of LEED certified space for any campus of our size in the country. We have over 4 million square feet. So if you are interested in that, if you're kind of fascinated by architecture and green building design, we have a self-guided tour on our website, sustainability.emory.edu, and you can find out about all the neat features of our buildings. But one of the most exciting new challenges that we're going to be confronted with is we have committed to all new construction being carbon neutral by 2025. So that is going to be a really exciting new chapter for us where we will be incorporating a lot of innovation into our buildings. So one of the ways that Emory is becoming very well known nationally and we've been receiving a lot of attention is we have one of the highest landfill waste diversion metrics in the entire country. So about 73% of our waste is going to composting or recycling rather than going to the landfill. This is critically important for just environmental and social justice reasons, because particularly in the Southeast, studies have shown the correlation between the siting of landfills and race. And what's really especially disturbing about this is it's not only the economically disadvantaged areas, it is just race of any socioeconomic level. So it's a real manifestation of the legacy of slavery, Jim Crow, and ongoing systemic racism, and we don't want any part of it. So what we are attempting to do is take our waste, and in the same way, we're trying to continually turn that idea of waste on its head. We're doing that by turning it into compost, a soil amendment that we can use on our farm and that other farmers can use, and recycle to upcycle to other products or recycle it just so it is not part of that waste stream to going to landfill. We have an exciting new chapter that I'll tell you about in a future slide, which will take some of this compost waste stream and turn it into a renewable natural gas. So our tagline is there is no away when you throw away. And I think that's an important lesson for us to be teaching our students and our whole community. Similarly, there is no way when you flush away. So one of the innovations Emory has launched that Kevin mentioned is our water hub. And what it does is take raw sewage and rather than send it to DeKalb County to wastewater treatment plant, which again is generally sited in minority neighborhoods, instead we're treating that raw sewage on our own campus. We generated it, we should take responsibility for it. And we hope we model that for others as well. So it is a large project. We're talking 400,000 gallons a day of sewage that's cleaned to a level where it can be reused to heat and cool our buildings, so in our steam plant and our chilled water plant, and for toilet flushing. It's really important economically for us to do it this way as well. We ended up having the same sort of arrangement with private investors paying all upfront capital costs, and then we just repay them as we would a utility bill. So it meets that economic piece of sustainability. It meets the environmental goals we have. It reduces our total water footprint by 40%, but also we achieve real social justice aims because Atlanta, as I'm sure all of you know, has received a lot of attention for sewer overflows, and DeKalb County is the same way. So we are alleviating the burden on our municipal system that helps with addressing the sewer overflows. Also, what's so neat about this facility, and Kevin's right, please sign up for one of the tours. We have student docents that will take you through. It is odor-free. It is aesthetically beautiful. You feel like you're in the Atlanta Botanical Gardens. And it is based around the philosophy of biomimicry. So we have microorganisms that are found in nature, found in wetlands or marshes or swamps that we've taken, and we put them in different controlled environments in terms of more oxygen or no oxygen, depending on what they like to thrive. And they are naturally cleaning that water for us. So it's a really wonderful example. We've taken over 500 tour groups through. That's everything from Girl Scout troops to CEOs of major multinational corporations. So again, it's a wonderful way that Emory can demonstrate innovation and beta test this technology for others. Well, yeah, go ahead, please.
If I could just real quick, you're signing up for a tour. It sounds like a great idea to really experience this and be part of it. Is there a link, or do we Google Emory Water Hub, or how do we go about that?
Yeah, so same website, sustainability.emory.edu, and then you look under our initiative for water and you will see the calendar there. Now, I need to caution that because of the pandemic, our campus hasn't been allowed to be open, for tours, but we have student interns that we're hiring for the fall. So once fall return to campus, we'll be able to open that up and do tours again. And I would love to host the Emory Over 40 alumni group if you want to do an in-person tour of it sometime. It's
bravo. That'd be awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
And we can also do a tour of some of our food gardens at the same time if you're interested, because another area where we're doing a lot of work is around food. This is critically important for greenhouse gas emissions reduction. A piece of food on average in the United States travels about 1,500 miles before it lands on your plate. So we are interested in shortening the distance between farm to table. And we have a goal of 75% of Emory's food being local or sustainable. And we have also fulfilled our dreams of having an organic farm at our Oxford campus. We have a weekly farmers market. We have educational gardens sprinkled throughout our campus. And we have a large annual food fair, sustainable food fair that draws hundreds of people. So we have not yet made it to our 75% goal, but we have really made a big difference in terms of growing our local agricultural economy just by saying, we will buy your food, which is what a lot of our local farmers needed to hear. So it started to move them toward organic and other sustainable methods. And we're now at over 40% of our food purchases are local or sustainable. So the way to get to the sustainable development goals is through partnerships. That's why SDG 17 is partnership. And we've seen that absolutely be the case. And one of the partnerships that I'm really delighted that we helped enable is Emory, Georgia Tech, and Spelman partnered to create a regional center of expertise for education on sustainable development for Greater Atlanta. And now we have over 200 stakeholders. Every higher ed institution in the area is part of it now. And this is significant because we were the 6th in the United States. That tiny little map of the world, you'll see that most of them are not in the United States, but it's a really great role that universities, corporations, and others can play in locally implementing the SDGs. And I would just also say, for those of you on the call who are interested in partnering with my office on our work, we are always looking for partnership opportunities, whether that's with corporations or nonprofits, other civic groups, even community level groups. So please feel free to reach out, because that's the only way we're going to advance these really audacious goals. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today is where are we going next? Because as you can see, over the 15 years that we've had a sustainability effort, we've been able to accomplish a good bit at Emory and through our hospital system, but there's so much more that we need to do. So I was challenged by our new Emory administration with the question of what's next. And what I really pointed to is the fact that while we've done so much, we don't have any sort of academic research center. And if you look around the country, most of our peer institutions do. And I didn't want to duplicate what was already happening, but thought there was a real gap, that there weren't many of these other universities looking at that intersection of climate, racial justice, and health disparities. And so because of that, we've launched now our Resilience and Sustainability Collaboratory, and that's with an initial group of about 130 faculty. And the idea is that it's not going to be a traditional academic research center. Instead, it's going to be what we call a think and do tank. And that our idea is to really come up with new approaches to deal with this intersection that I mentioned. And we will serve as the US-based anchor for what is an international group of scholars that are called the International Resilience Alliance. Now, I'm using this word resilience. What do I mean by that? And I want to go back. So resilience is a word that many of us think of as the ability to go back to where we were before, the ability to bounce back. That's not really how we're using the word, because if you think about the status quo, there's poverty, there's systemic racism. We don't want the status quo. When we use the word resilience, we're talking about the ability to transform and change in positive ways. And that's really what we seek to do. So again, in the middle of a pandemic and a financial crisis, why are we launching this new thing? And we just feel there's a moral obligation and a real sense of urgency, especially because Emory is the largest employer in Atlanta. We're the largest healthcare system in Georgia. We have this deep bench of faculty who are engaged in sustainability and resilience work. And we have a track record of innovation like the Water Hub and other efforts. And we think that, frankly, Atlanta is where the rubber is hitting the road on these conjoined issues of climate, health disparities, and racial justice. And so we are in a position to make meaningful change. And on this slide, I've just listed some reasons why I think Atlanta is particularly well suited to be this hub for the International Resilience Alliance. We're #1 in the US for income inequality and lack of economic mobility. In fact, a child born into poverty in Atlanta has only a 4% chance of coming out of poverty within one generation. I used to live in Seattle, Washington, and it was something like 4D% chance. So we're one of the worst in the nation for that. despite the fact that we are the cradle of the civil rights movement and we are, you know, the economic engine of the South. So it's a real city of contradictions. Similarly, we are where the rubber hits the road for climate change. The National Climate Assessment tells us 97% of the counties hardest hit by climate change are going to be in the American South. So this is not a real question. We've got to act. So as I mentioned, we're talking about resilience as being an embrace of change, but a transformation in new and positive ways. And we're thinking our kind of theory of change is that you address this at the level of the individual, the family, the community, and the planet. Because if you think about it, an individual may have so many other difficulties and challenges. It's hard to think about planetary resilience. So we really have to respect and address those concerns at the individual level, the family level, the community, and then we can really make a difference in terms of the planet. And I'll give some examples of what I mean. So with some of the projects we're working on, we've gotten a lot of press for something called the Working Farms Fund. So we partnered with the Conservation Fund, which is a national nonprofit. The Conservation Fund is putting an easement on land, farmland within 100 miles of Atlanta. That means that that land will have to forever stay in agriculture and can't be turned into a big box store or some other kind of development. What that does is then allow a partnership with farmers where they lease to own it over a pathway of 5 to 10 years. And that enables access to land ownership by farmers who haven't traditionally been supported. So for example, African American, Native American, Asian American, and female farmers, we are specifically targeting. So now they'll have land. And because it's under a conservation easement, it's a lot cheaper than just the market rate for the land if it could have been turned into a development. The role Emory plays is we are entering into food purchase agreements to say, we will buy your food, sight unseen, we will buy your food. They're able to take that contract to the bank and have access to traditional financing. Again, something that they have been denied over time, so that then they can get their greenhouse and their barn and all the things they need for their operation. It's extremely exciting, and we're the first in the country. And now, of course, we have Working Farms Fund Chicago starting, a Working Farms Fund Detroit that they're interested in. So it just shows where Emory's being a real leader. Another example of leadership was on the front page of the Atlanta paper yesterday. I don't know how many of you get the AJC, but you would have seen the cover story about Emory professor Eri Sakawa, who discovered what is now a Superfund site in West Atlanta. And she did this through the partnership that our office has had for a long time with the city of Atlanta to help support their urban garden program. So you're probably aware that there are food deserts in underserved areas of Metro Atlanta. A lot of those areas are in West Atlanta. And the city said, oh, we want to really encourage urban gardening. And Professor Sakawa cautioned them that historically polluting industries had been sited in those neighborhoods. These are redlined, formerly redlined neighborhoods. So again, that legacy of Jim Crow alive and well and literally buried in the soil. And she, sure enough, found very high levels of lead and other heavy metals, and it's not safe. And it's heartbreaking to think children are living in with this kind of exposure. So Emory's role, first of all, she alerted the Department of Health, the EPA, is working closely with a community group. It's called Historic West Side Gardens. They're doing testing, knocking on doors, doing big community events, doing events at libraries and schools, and engaging the community about how you can safely garden using raised beds. And more than anything, testing the children. We're teamed up with pediatricians at Emory, testing the children and also testing the soil. Some other examples, we will locate this across from our Emory Midtown Hospital, and we're going to have healthcare clinics. So as climate change brings more impacts to our area, children are going to bear the disproportionate brunt, over 80% of the burden of this, especially low-income children. So we need more free healthcare access. And so we'll have a pediatric clinic and an adult care clinic, and most importantly, a center for family resilience with mental and behavioral health and other wraparound services to help these families. And it'll be a great place for us to train our Emory nurses and doctors about how to address the whole child, the whole family. And we will also be addressing their homes. So one of the interesting partnerships we have is with the City of Atlanta and Google, where our faculty are going to be doing home health audits to see if we can help increase and improve the air quality in the home, reduce their energy bills through weatherization, test their lead, test their water, and just basically make sure that this home environment, which is where so many of us are spending an increasing amount of our time with the pandemic, that it is supporting the health of these children. And finally, we just recently got a very generous grant from the US EPA. I alluded to this when I was talking about our food waste. We're going to put next to the water hub a prototype anaerobic digester. What that does is it takes food waste, converts it to renewable natural gas we can use in our steam plant instead of fossil fuels. And it also creates a healthy soil amendment for our farms. And we're going to do it with something we call equity by design. So just like our water hub, which is odor-free and beautiful, we're going to make this odor-free and beautiful so that we don't see the same kind of siting of in minority neighborhoods, something that you would not want in your backyard. Instead, we're going to prototype how you make it something that you would welcome in your backyard. And I think, again, that's an important role for Emory to play. So there are many other projects. I could talk all day. As you can tell, I really enjoy this work and welcome your questions and thoughts. I've put down our website, and you can reach me anytime at keenet.howitt@emory.edu. If you forget how to spell Keenet, Kevin knows how to spell Keenet. That's the trickiest part of it all. But I'm going to pause there and just see if there are any questions.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So this is so educational and inspirational. I'm proud to be an alum and that Emory is taking these initiatives. You kind of hit on it earlier, but is the motivation just being a good citizen? And then kind of piggybacking on that, are other Georgia universities looking to us? And then is there anything kind of university wide where there's other universities are doing similar things?
Yeah, sure. Well, in terms of the first question, we're always looking to what's called the triple bottom line of sustainability. Does it make sense economically? Does it make sense in terms of environmental protection, including public health, human health protection? And is it good for people? It's the social benefit. And it's really great when you can hit that sweet spot with everything, like the water hub where we save money. It's good for the environment, and we have other examples for that. Sometimes, though, you're not going to save money. For example, our 75% local sustainable food goal, it does not directly save us money. You spend more money for better quality food, period. That's just the way it works. However, if you think about long-term costs to the health of our students, the well-being of our employees, the well-being of our patients who are eating this food, there's no amount of money in the world that can not justify that, right? So what we're always having to do is, I say to senior leadership, look at this as a portfolio. We save money in some areas like energy reduction, water use reduction. It may cost a little more in other areas like food, but all of it is the right thing to do. And so when you blend that portfolio, that's how you get to a cost neutral approach to sustainability. And in fact, over time, we've saved money. So that's just one kind of way to answer that, because I think sometimes people try to pick apart what costs more and what costs less, but you really have to have a comprehensive approach. On the question of are we working with other Georgia institutions? So I mentioned our partnership with the RCE, Greater Atlanta, and that's where we work with all the HBCUs and University of Georgia and Georgia Tech and others. We also have Drawdown Georgia, which someone had asked about in the chat, and that's where the higher ed institutions are getting together with corporations and others to share ideas. But honestly, the way I am most using those partnerships, and it's international, is through the Resilience and Sustainability Collaboratory. So for example, thinking about this anaerobic digester, well, in Germany and Sweden and Austria, there are lots of anaerobic digesters deployed for food waste. And it's just in the United States that it's so unusual. So we are partnering with academic institutions in Europe to be able to get their lessons learned. And similarly, they've been having challenges with ammonia emissions. We have a faculty member who is an expert on ammonia emissions. And so we're going to be able to give them, we're in fact having a big international conference about this in the fall. So yes, we're working with our Georgia institutions, but our scope is really global. For example, the Water Hub we discovered was being used in Europe and Asia, and we brought that to the United States because the reality is the United States is not on the forefront when it comes to a lot of these sustainability actions. Europe very often has been in the lead just because their regulations have been a lot tighter. So it's really spurred on new technologies. So I like keeping our lens really broad to find good ideas wherever they exist in the world and bring them here. And, one of the things that I think Emory can bring to our whole higher ed community in Georgia is that we are private and we're nimble and we can act fast. So I know like Georgia Tech has wanted for a long time to have a water hub, and it's just harder for them to get that. And we've been able to really, now we've had it for 6 years, so we've been able to work through a lot of the kinks with it and have lots of lessons learned. And it was interesting. Apple has a North American sustainability officer who I'm, in correspondence with and shared all of our water hub information. And now they're putting a water hub at one of their Apple facilities. And she said, God, this is so helpful. You're just giving me everything. And I said, of course, we're a higher ed institution. We don't, we're not competitive at all. And I think she's used to operating in a world where, Google might not want to share with Apple or whatever. I don't know, I'm making that up, but you can imagine that that's a little different. Whereas the great role that Emory can play is we'll share all the information. We want it deployed elsewhere. So we really support one another in terms of higher eds helping each other advance their sustainability missions.
That's great. I love that.
Besides, they love us because we don't play football, so there's no rivalry. Everybody can, Emory's sort of like Switzerland when it comes to other higher eds in Georgia, where, there's no.
I have a question, but I see someone has a hand up. I just didn't know how to do that on mine. So, Steve, did you want to go first?
Yeah, it's kind of quick. I do want to go. I've got to go to another meeting. First of all, once again, I'm so impressed with Emory. This has been so great. I'm just blown away by what Emory's done. But something really stuck when I heard it. Why is Georgia Power restricting the amount of solar power we can use?
Oh, goodness, Steve, we could have a separate call just about that. It's been a really long journey. So here are a couple of dynamics going on. Plant Vogtle, as you know, is the only nuclear plant being built right now in the United States. It's going to provide over 2,000 megawatts of power. So Georgia Power's position is we don't need any more generation. We're going to have all this generation coming on. Our answer is yes, but that's not what we define as clean energy. And then you get into this big back and forth about, well, nuclear could be defined as clean energy. And the reality is that we need probably all these things to get to net zero fast enough, but restricting solar when we can put that on the ground a lot faster, Vogtle up and running, is what we that's Emory's position, is that's the right answer. So we actually intervened in the Georgia Power Integrated Resource Plan to try to encourage even more ready access to solar. I'm really proud of Emory for doing that. And we also were pressing to get a microgrid that would have our hospital, CDC, Druid Hills High School for shelter in place, the fire department, all these things on a microgrid. So if the grid went down, we could keep running it on solar with battery backup. And we were denied being able to do that. So it's just one of these things where we have to keep working to change that kind of mindset. And I think we will over time, you know, and we had Princeton come down and testify on our behalf that when Hurricane Sandy hit, their microgrid is the reason their hospital didn't have to shut down. Right down the street from Princeton, a hospital had to be evacuated because of Sandy. And, you know, lives get lost when you evacuate a hospital. So yeah, we appreciate your support on that. And I hope if you have more questions, you'll contact me, and there's lots of ways to get involved to push the Public Service Commission to let them know we want to see Georgia Power be really progressive in this area. So thank you for that question.
Thank you.
I'll ask my question now. Keena, first, I just have to share, I think our boys were together at the Glenn School.
I was
back
about
in
to
the
say,
day.
I recognize you. Yes, it's so nice to see you again.
Yes, I was like, I know that name. I know how to pronounce it and spell it. But anyway, so I now work for GIPL, which is the Georgia Interfaith Power and Light. And I also have started JCAN Georgia, which is the Jewish Climate Action Network of Georgia. So I come from a very faith-based approach to promoting environmental stewardship. And first of all, this is awesome. I was the one that asked about Drawdown Georgia because we're really trying to help congregations align their goals with Drawdown Georgia because they're already, you know, evidence-based. But I wanted to ask, you know, we're really trying to connect with youth and have kind of, you know, youth movements. Also, a lot of young people, all ages, are looking for service opportunities. So I thought, you know, how can I access opportunities where we could support some of these awesome initiatives? And I know a lot of it could be advocacy. Yeah, I will write all letters to Georgia Power. I hear you, girl. But yeah, just if there's other things to really engage young people. Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for that question. It's great to be reconnected. I think we should probably talk even more offline, but engaging youth 18 to 30, whatever you define as youth, I mean, that's our Emory population, right? So our students care very deeply about this. In fact, there was a recent survey showing 75% of high school seniors choose their college based on its environmental commitment, 75%. So this is, you know, critical for this generation. We just got our literacy survey back of our Emory students, and I'm delighted to report 95% said that their knowledge of sustainability increased during their time at Emory, and 93% said their knowledge of the intersection of racial justice and sustainability increased during their time at Emory, which made me really excited because, of course, we deploy our students out around the entire world and they become thought leaders. And so it's such a critical pipeline. That said, we also are engaging with K through 12 through our Resilience and Sustainability Collaboratory, because we know that very often children and families are the best messengers and teachers. And as a mom, I know you know that, you know, we saw this with recycling, with kids teaching their parents how to recycle. Similarly, we really think they can teach their parents how to safely garden, to put in the raised beds and the proper vegetables so that the lead contamination they may live with is not a problem. So also they can say, hey, we need to have the lead tested in our soils, just so they can have that kind of awareness. So we are partnering with K through 12 on that. But I really welcome, I mean, just for everyone on this call, if you all have ideas of ways that Emory can be more involved in your community, I can't overpromise that we can do every single thing, but I'd rather be able to be in conversation and think about how we can share resources and work together. And GIPL in particular, I'm a huge fan. Woody Hunter, you know, rest in peace, is just a wonderful man who, when it was getting started, we had a lot of conversations. And Candler School of Theology at Emory has actually got a huge group of students engaged on sustainability and faculty. So yeah, let's reconnect.
Awesome. Will do. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you.
Keenan, I mean, are we
Hey,
waiting?
Dawn.
Hey, how are you?
Good to see you.
Wonderful to see you. And I hope I'm not overriding someone else. I raised my hand, but I wasn't sure if that was the way you were doing it. So now that we're connected, I would love to know why the DeKalb Historical Board is tied so much to their rules when a solar panel application comes through in this historic neighborhood, this being the Emory neighborhood that you're familiar with. I was floored that I didn't even get a hearing. They just said, no, you can see it from the street 6 months out of the year. And I was like, what? And on that basis, they just, they just refused me. And I was appalled. That was my big 2020 effort. And I thought, I'll have something cool and good to show for this. And they said, no.
Oh, Dawn, I'm so sorry to hear that. I did not know that that was an issue. I live in Decatur, and they were great about my panels, and it's been a non-issue for my neighbors too. So happy to ask our Office of Governmental and Community Affairs, David Payne and Betty Willis, to look into that more. Definitely it's not anything that Emory's saying, because
No, well, and Emory's setting the example, honestly. I was kind of pumped, and it was part of that Decatur DeKalb solar effort that was going on last year, and the therm cost kept dropping. I'm like, oh, I'm in right now. And I just and I vetted everything, my homeowner's insurance and all kinds of stuff that I felt like, well, this might be impacted or that might be impacted. It never occurred to me that the last hurdle would be the deal breaker.
Well, I'm so sorry. Well, another resource is Turner Environmental Law Clinic has done a survey of all Georgia municipalities to identify any hurdles to solar deployment, because it is a bit of a patchwork across our state.
Right.
I think they'd be very interested in your story. And Mindy Goldstein, who runs that clinic, I'm happy to connect you with, because she might have some ideas for you.
That would be lovely. You know how to find me.
Okay, I'll do that, Dawn.
Thank you, Keenan. And anyone else who's had that issue, let Keenan know now so she can share it with all of us.
Great.
Keenan, I've got a quick question, please. You might know this, but I'm just all about Oxford, and I'm so proud that Oxford has been played such an important part in these efforts with the organic farm and the new LEED certified buildings and the retrofit of the historic buildings. How do you see Oxford being, a sustainable insular model and going forward? Are there any plans that I haven't heard about? I'd just love to get your opinion on how Oxford.
Yeah, well, I love Oxford too. And we are really fortunate to have Oxford College as a place where we can pilot and deploy on a smaller scale some solutions that might work well on our larger Druid Hills campus. So for example, one of the great energy efficiency kind of options that's available to us is something called demand response. And for those of you who've lived in other parts of the country, you may be familiar with this, where you're in a building where they say, "Are you informed us that we're at peak energy rates? We need everyone to unplug their computers." This happened to me when I used to live in the Northeast. And what that does is when the greatest demand is on the utility, it helps them manage it and it helps you manage costs. And this is going to be critically important. Behavior change is going to be such an important part of us getting to our solution. Well, we've just been talking about piloting at Oxford College this demand response, because that's a smaller community. The students are so engaged. The faculty are so supportive of sustainability. And we think it'd be a great place to start that culture, because then those students will come to main campus. And then when at main campus, we start to do this, they'll be able to teach their peers through peer-to-peer education programs about, oh yeah, it's no big deal. All you do is they'll dim the lights and let you know this is going on. Then you just unplug your computer, and it doesn't usually last for more than 30 minutes or an hour. And then everything's all good. But it's just a great example of why Oxford is such a special place for us. And that's just one example of the kind of thing we're doing to pilot there.
Oxford leading the charge. I love it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you haven't visited the Oxford Organic Farm, I highly recommend that as a tour as well. It is such a special place.
Great. Well, thank you so much for giving us so much great information. Oh my gosh, it was just wonderful. There's some great links in the chat to Emory Over 40, as well as the Sustainability at Emory page. So you can check that out and learn more about that. It's really been awesome. We're coming up close to 1 o'clock, so we just thank you so much for that. And let folks get on with their afternoon and have an awesome Friday. Thanks for all the great questions and the great wealth of information again.
Well, thank you, Michael, for hosting, and Lori and Kevin for organizing, and Jenny for the behind the scenes work. We really appreciate it. And I hope I get to see all of you Over 40 alumni at a Water Hub tour in the future. I think we made a date with each other, so I'll see you hopefully.
That would be
then.
awesome. We'd love to do that. Yes.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest
Later.
of your day.
Thank you.
Bye, Kina.
Bye.
Thank you.